Usually, when you think of Microsoft and the 90s and 2000s, you probably think of their dominance over different sectors of software industries. For example, Windows, Internet Explorer, Microsoft. I think there's a discrepancy in here because there was OpenOffice, one of the biggest for its time competitors to Microsoft Office, one of the best free and open source solutions of the time, and it's not necessarily around as a Sun product anymore. So what was it like? What happened to it? That's a good question. Let's get started. Our story does not start with a program series called OpenOffice.org, but a program series called StarOffice. StarOffice, which was one of the pieces of software that was more committed to Linux. Not necessarily completely in the way that, was it really Microsoft Office for Linux? No, but they wouldn't need to be too concerned, because they would be acquired by Sun Microsystems in... Hey Google, when did Sun Microsystems buy Star Division?
The 5th of August 1999. According to Wikipedia, Star Division was acquired by the software and hardware vendor Sun Microsystems on the 5th of August 1999 for a higher double-digit million amount in US dollars.
Oh, huh. That's convenient. However, OpenOffice.org would be released proper in 2002, and they came swinging. While they weren't necessarily the biggest formidable force in the industry at the time, they were now under the umbrella of Sun Microsystems, which was a quite powerful tech company that housed projects such as Java and Solaris. However, they weren't necessarily entirely the strongest as they used to be, since they were hit hard by the dot-com bubble in 2000. However, this didn't stop OpenOffice from getting press attention. Now, as a side note, finding articles for this video was a bit hard because you can't just go look up OpenOffice and expect to find everything that you're looking for. There was stuff about like tech companies opening offices and stuff, and so this video has been a bit of a challenge since it's not necessarily the easiest to find sources for the video. However, in 2002, ZDNet provided their own review, I guess, of the product and asked people what their thoughts were on the product. They stated that it was a fairly strong thing, mainly only hindered by its lack of a proper database program. However, they also brought up that this was a Linux suite and that you were probably already going to be using something like MySQL anyway, so it wasn't the end of the world. And they also brought up that there were points that it lacked in. And it was also brought up in a PC Mag UK article from 2003, mainly focusing on Red Hat, that one of the major programs included in the recently released version of Red Hat was OpenOffice.org 1. Over the span of just a couple years, and by couple, I really mean like half a decade or so, I guess, OpenOffice.org got to a fairly powerful position, and it was quite popular. So much so that when OpenOffice.org 3 was released in 2008 or so, the website's servers were knocked offline by people flocking to the website because they wanted to download it. Now, I think that's what you call a successful piece of FOSS. And that's a good thing if FOSS is successful, because screw proprietary software that you have to pay for. So, if it was so popular and whatnot, what killed it? Well, in 2010, Oracle came knocking on Sun's doors. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that Sun wasn't necessarily the most financially... I mean, they were somehow able to stay afloat into the 2010s, but they got bought out by Oracle. And thus, Oracle absorbed all of Sun's different software products, such as Solaris, OpenOffice, Java, and VirtualBox. And while they were interested in maintaining some of these things, they weren't interested in maintaining other things like Solaris and OpenOffice. After being neglected by Oracle, a bunch of developers from OpenOffice decided that they were going to just leave, form a new project, and take the source code and start from scratch. While Oracle took what was left and gave it to Apache, who would then be funded by IBM to do the project. This led to a fork in the road and two new open source office suites, LibreOffice and Apache OpenOffice, which is technically just still based off of OpenOffice.org, and I'm pretty sure they still use the website, so this was essentially the end of the original iteration of OpenOffice, but it still lives on, and it somehow, to this day, lives by a bit of a hanging thread, at least as far as I know, since that funding from IBM was cut in 2015, and thus the project has mostly dried up. while LibreOffice thrives to this day as the default Office suite on things like Linux distros and whatnot. So let's look at OpenOffice.org as it actually was for real. Surprisingly, OpenOffice.org was like one of the last programs to continue supporting Windows 2000 in terms of programs that don't support Windows 2000 anymore. Surprisingly, for like literally the entirety of its existence, you could use OpenOffice.org on Windows 2000, which is kind of cool. But anyway, OpenOffice.org, you can tell here, this is a Sun Microsystems version. I think this was shortly before, this was like probably the year before Sun got acquired by Oracle, which as I previously mentioned, is how OpenOffice.org went to the grave. That being said, OpenOffice in its entirety is still around, but like the original OpenOffice.org, that's how that project met its fate. So let's probably deal with these 6 programs. So let's get these first 3 out of the way first. Starting with our word processor, Writer. I'm just going to use the name and I'm not going to start with OpenOffice at the start because these program names were reused by LibreOffice. So because I'm more familiar with LibreOffice, I feel like it, you know, what should I type about? I don't know. We'll cross that bridge now. Actually, I have a better idea. We're going to see how fast I can type. Oh, look, what is this? Oh, it's okay. Autocorrect has been enabled. Alright, so I don't know why Windows Vista likes to do that. Like, what is your problem, Windows Vista? So, that was quite fast. I say having spent 3 minutes or so typing this. So you can clearly see we got like spell check. We can also have we also have different formatting options as to be expected in a thing. How's that red? That looks more orange. How do I... Style, superscript. That was more complicated than it should have been. You know, let's go look and see what that was like to implement that in Microsoft Word 2007. This is a brief deviation, I know. Well, let's go to that. Okay, so I guess that's something that Microsoft Office beats OpenOffice with for the time, because that was Microsoft Office 2007, and this is from 2009. I don't think I have a Windows XP screenshot, but I guess Windows Vista fits the bill better. Good enough. Let's go picture from file, or we could alternatively scan. All right, so we are going to go do this. Seems to center the image, but let's see. Well, I guess let's just leave that. It's now we're gonna go to Calc root values. You know what I'm gonna do. I'm pretty sure you can tell which visible blends. Oh, huh. So we can change the visible buttons. Go add that. We'll go change this to font size 15, which isn't really a standard font size, but who really cares? And we'll just go from we'll go do an entire... No, this is supposed to be Q2 2019. Q3. All right, let's just we'll get to the fun stuff eventually. Of course, here I made a slight error because I want to do this and then just... So we can easily do this. Oh, well, we have an error. Alright, let's go get all these values entered in. Alright, as per usual, things are quite unfairly skewed in favor of blueberries. And so much so that while most other fruits are at a bit of a loss, the blueberries... the blueberry stock is just increased exponentially. I think you can tell what my favorite fruit is. Also, it's kind of hard to really tell what the data is. So, in order to solve our problem of the cell not being the most easy to, we're going to use pale green for the stocks. Can you do this in, we can use sun colors, as in Sun Microsystems. Ha, get it? All right, let's see if that is in Microsoft Excel. It is, but still, there's like sun-themed colors in here. Huh. Well, we have our spreadsheet. Next up on the block, we have a presentation wizard. So let's go choose from a template. Introducing a new product. A recommendation of a strategy. Presentation backgrounds. How about that? Oh, it's like an actual glacier. Keyboard. What's this? What's the best one of these? I guess so. Let's go next. Original. Next. Effect. Random bars. Horizontal. Next. Steels of liquid. Vibranium deposit. Next. Create. Wait, I'm a vibranium deposit. New slide. Hello. And now let's go to a slideshow. Oh, that's that. That's cool, I guess. All right, let's move on to the more significant programs, starting with drawing. So this is relatively similar to Microsoft Publisher, which is being axed. So just you could go to basic shapes. We have kind of broken it. And here we can make something like, say, a brief, neat little document showcasing some of my photography skills, for example. Now that I realize it's essentially like the open source equivalent of Microsoft Publisher, which is kind of cool because I know what program suite I'm switching to once Microsoft kicks the bucket entirely with Publisher. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Huh, I never noticed this in Windows Vista. That looks cool. It was like similar to Microsoft Publisher, you get the point. Next up, there's database. Create a new database. And here, we could do some very databasey things, like, for example, create a new table and input values into that table. By the way, this is a thing that wanted Java that gave me a headache. Not actually, but I think you can get the point. Last but not least, we've got Formula. This is a kind of program that isn't in Microsoft Office and has never been. However, it has got functionality similar to that of a Office feature, I think the Microsoft Equation Editor, but still. Anyway, we can do very algebraic things in here, such as polynomials, and we can also do various other kinds of equations as well. However, that's generally going to be about it for this video. Now, before I draw this video to a complete close, if you've stuck around this long, then you've probably noticed something interesting. I haven't used the pixel art sprites for the entirety of the video. Why is that? Well, let me just show you, shall I? Have you been looking at my content on my other channels recently? Because if you haven't, then this may not seem familiar to you. Yes, this is actually me, because I am replacing my pixel art sprites with a model. I was originally going to debut this model on the main channel in whatever video comes next, but because I feel there's a lot of hype around this moment that I'm opting to just, I'm opting to debut the model now at the end of this video. So yeah, this will be used quite a bit in content in the future. I've tested the waters with Tinge, and I've got two programs I can do chroma key in. I've got DaVinci Resolve, which I of course use, and then I've also got Power Director, which I might start using if this change makes it a bit hard to do content with DaVinci Resolve, similar to my narration change at this time of year last year. I realized, why is it that every year, around this time of year, there is a significant change to my content? Like, why? I don't know. Point being that, yep, if you made it this far into the video, you get to see me as an anime girl. How about that? Well, anyway, before I do my closing words, do you have any opinions on OpenOffice? Did you use this program back in the day, or do you somehow still use this thing? As in this version, not the modern successor suite, or do you use a successor suite or LibreOffice? Is there something I could do to improve my content? Let me know down below in the comments or my Discord server, and feel free to leave a like on this video, or a dislike if you just don't like it, or something. So, without further ado, let's just finish this off. Overall, OpenOffice.org is quite a fairly decent Office suite for its time, and actually gave Microsoft a bit of a run for its money, or it could have tried to. It had some fairly strong penetration rate for a non-Microsoft Office suite for the time, and it kind of paved the way for other things to also fill the void these days. At least, if I remember correctly, even though they're not open source.